seeking approval, you'll never get it. And you don't need it. You don't need it.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Today, I am with Richard, and it's an honor to be with you today. We virtually met through the associate program, and it's been, a true blessing to, even just before we hopped on, we did a just simple 3 breaths, and I could just feel the energy. And you've worked already in mindfulness and coaching, been in this field for a while, and I'm curious to hear, how did you come to SelfWorth, the SelfWorth Academy, or even become aware of this term, SelfWorth?
Great question. I mean, I've been working in this area for a while, like you said, and for me, the industry, I was surrounded by a lot of coaches that were sort of goal setters, and there's value to that, but I'm someone that likes a kind of a deeper connection to things, and I prefer looking inside. I think there's value to both approaches, but I wasn't seeing enough of that, and I didn't have a word for it. And then suddenly Nicole, a friend of SelfWorth Academy, recommended me John's book, and self-worth hadn't really been defined for me before that. And as soon as I read his book and the distinction between self-esteem and self-worth, everything just clicked into place. It's like, that's kind of the problem that I have with a lot of what I'm seeing. It seems self-esteem driven, like get the external thing, as opposed to like, how are you when that stuff doesn't work out? And so then that really helped. That definition, or that distinction, really helped me. And I've just been in love with the concept, and hence why I joined the academy after that.
Great. Yeah, for me as well. It was a huge realization. I wonder, whilst reading the book, not only for your own coaching work, has it had an effect on your personal life? Have you been able to see and look back on perhaps how self-worth has entered your life, or is there been a specific moment where you can capture that, okay, this is when a moment of self-worth, I connected to a moment of self-worth?
As you speak, the one that comes immediately to mind is a few years back. It's funny, as like most humans, I have approval issues, and I seek approval and love in different ways, and it's in understanding that and how perhaps to find it within. And what I'm thinking back to is when I started doing this kind of obscure breathing technique about 4 or 5 years ago, and part of it involves sitting in baths of ice water, and my friends were just like ridiculing me and just being like, "No, breathe," and we're gonna find Rich frozen. Like it's just like kind of funny, but also just really sort of just rejecting and making fun out of what I was doing. And a part of me was like, oh. But there's something inside me going, damn it, like this feels good, and I'm just going to do it for me. And when we do things for us, for when there isn't an audience, and when we keep doing it, and we're like, wow, like, this feels right to me, and I'm just gonna keep going and enjoy it for me. That really sort of comes up as a sense of self-worth, and the benefits of sticking to it. The Wim Hof method cured this or really helped clear out the symptoms of an illness I was dealing with, and this whole journey really took off from there. So it's worth cultivating, I would say, a good bit of self-worth.
Yeah. I have the same, like you mentioned before, validation, approval things, and it comes up like in moments of, for me, like in important moments of my life where I'm about to transition, and there's something important that I'd like to reach, and that's when I notice within me where I seek outside for approval. It's like, is this okay for me to do? And it's like yes, Amanda, go. It's like I need the other person to yeah, it's like that validation. I'm just curious with you if you have anything for anyone that is going through this seeking approval, searching outside of themselves for validation, or caring what other people think. Do you have any tips or tools that either you implement for yourself or that you give to your clients in a situation like that?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that, we're operating from sort of our unconscious mind, and a part of us that was formed when we were very young, and that's how it makes sense of the world. And it makes sense of the world through a set of beliefs, right? And contrary to what a lot of people think about trying to change beliefs and heal them, it's like I would say just deal with the fact that, I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, or something like this. It's not going anywhere. Like seeking approval, you'll never get it, and you don't need it. You don't need it, And so what happens when we kind of take that mask off, and we just do something for ourselves, there's a dangerous simplicity in what John's written in the book, in that you read some of these things, you're like, oh, just say a mantra, like, because I'm worth it. And it just like, actually, no, like the real work is there isn't some fanfare of applause, or there isn't some goal that's ticked, or cocktail of hormones that kicks off, to give you this experience that makes you think, yes, it's so much more subtle than that, but it's on building it on a daily basis. And so to a client, or, anyone really struggling with approval issues, it's like, it's a step-by-step, day-by-day kind of really sort of small bites at this reality of just doing things for you, no matter what anyone else thinks, learning to sort of say no, the small things like that, and also when setting a boundary like that, or when being challenged, and just holding that, just saying no, and then sitting in the silence of it, where normally you would then go in to qualify yourself, to justify yourself to the person you're seeking approval from. That's a great idea, because you're sitting and going, and most of the time they'll be like, oh, okay. oh wow, and the flip side of that, and it requires courage, and it gets, let's remember that courage isn't something that you can cultivate. It's there in the moment. It's not something you can be coached. It's not like something you can buy in a bottle, although beer helps.
Or tequila shot.
Whatever your poison, right? Like ideally, I lost my thread now. I'm just thinking about having a beer. Ideally, what we want to be doing is saying to that person, hey, this is a bit edgy for me, but I've got this crazy thing where, like, I really respect you and I kind of almost want your approval. Isn't that mad? And then they're just sharing that reality, just the weight's gone. And that other person, by and large, will be like, wow, cool, thank you, amazing. Or I had that with you, or I had that with Jeff, or whatever. But that's a lot for some people, but that's not a small step. So take the small steps first, but then something like that can be really powerful to shake the approval monkey off your back, I would say. Does that resonate?
Yeah. And that brings me to, it's opening yourself up to being vulnerable and sharing what might be going on in your head and on your mind. And I had this conversation actually at lunch club with someone before about that, and how once we open up to the other person, it's not only a weight lifted, but it's like a connection building, and it's like a trust that's being created between the two people. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's wonderful. Yeah.
I mean, something to add to that is that, men in particular have a huge problem with just the word vulnerability. They just scream, running away, like, as soon as they see the word itself, like, let alone try and practice it. And through no fault of our own, that's part of what I'm excited to talk about in the upcoming workshop, depending on when this video gets released. But this idea that men don't talk, and that they're very, very scared of showing themselves. We've been raised not to be, you know, honest or not to be, sorry, not to be kind of too open and to show that we have needs, and that's seen as some kind of weakness, and it's really hard for us to do that kind of thing. And so that example I gave was actually me at a men's retreat, and it was the guy leading it that I was just had on this pedestal. And as soon as I got real with that, you know, it wasn't easy, but he was like, now we're just like that. You know, we're friends. You know, it's just so ridiculous. You're like, oh wow, okay. And I just think for men in particular, it's an even bigger step. Not to say all women have it easy with vulnerability, not at all, but it's a really big step, and it's one that we need to choose to take. It's not just gonna the situation won't just pop up, you know what I mean? You have to really take that step and go, Jeff, can I just talk to you about something, and this is edgy for me, and really create that space for it.
You mentioned you're going to go tonight into a men's circle. What is, for someone that is, if a man is watching and they've never heard of that before, what does that entail? Like, what would it, and why is this something that is beneficial or useful? I mean, you shared a little bit about that, about vulnerability, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just about that. I mean, like, and that's because there are a lot of circles out there that it almost sounds mystical, and it can be described as men running through woods naked, you know, screaming, or kind of, you know, or just getting into warrior mode and you know, all this shit. And it's like, there's a value to working with archetypes at a much later level, but to turn up in a circle is just to show up with a bunch of other men and just kind of be real for a bit and say, hey, how's it going? I'm Rich. These are my highs and my lows for the last week. You know, I'm struggling with this a little bit, and this was really great. And just be heard and seen in that space first and foremost. And, you know, just to be supported by other men, and also just being able to say maybe some difficult truths, like, I really don't find my partner attractive at the moment. I don't know what to do about it. And I can't say this to any of my mates, and you know, just in this kind of a safe environment, whatever it is, just to be real, because there aren't so many of those spaces for that kind of thing. And other work's possible through that, and you know, it could be themed, but it's just really nice to be like, I love sitting in the online or offline presence of men in the most heterosexual way possible. You know, I in the past I was petrified of it. I was terrified of that energy. I was really uncomfortable. But again, baby steps, just showing up, maybe sitting silently, and then it's just been life-changing for me, which is why I like kind of running them now. It's just a gift to just, you know, meet these other men and hear their stories, because from being these kind of like stoic figures that don't generally explain who they are, and you know, very quickly when they meet each other, by and large, you get into a different space, and then when you see someone open up and show themselves, it's a really cool thing. I enjoy it.
That's yeah, it's wonderful. And to create that opportunity, that space, the safe space where there's no judgment, I think it's necessary for the men and for women. There's a lot more women that I know that are more open to seek out such events, and I know more and more men as well. So I acknowledge and I admire, and I thank men that show up, and also you for facilitating and creating that space. So thank you. Which leads me into the panel. You're having a panel, you're having your own workshop, but also a panel, right, of discussions with a few of the men in the SelfWorth Academy. Can you share a little bit about that? What's the topic that you're going to be?
A short and sharp answer, which is really rare for me, but I have no idea. We haven't really come.
Awesome. That's the fun. That's the play, right? You just like see who shows up, and or maybe you have a chat a week before.
I'm sure. You know, we're men. There's structure. You know, I'm sure there'll be a plan and something to fix. No, we haven't covered it yet. So yeah. I don't know who the people are. But we're all looking forward to it, I'm sure.
And then in regards to your own session?
Yeah. Men Don't Talk, the silent crisis of masculinity and how we can respond, is the full title. And I just want to kind of paint a clear picture and a picture of hope despite the title. Just to be real again with anyone watching, no matter what gender you identify with, like, we're struggling as men and we're not great to admit it. And just to paint a clear picture of kind of where we're at, how we're struggling, why we're struggling, what that looks like in life, and not just to dwell on that, the whole time, but also just paint a picture of how we can respond and what we can start to do differently. And without going into the contents of the workshop, I want to bring self-worth into it. I want to, I've overlapped the shifts that John's come up with in the book and how we can relate that particularly to men and some of their issues. And I want to have a couple of breakout rooms where people can kind of share their experiences. And I'm pretty sure it won't just be men that will be showing up. Everyone's welcome. And I just want to give people a snippet of experience of what it's like just to be seen and heard in those kind of environments as well. And hopefully plant some seeds and get some more men involved, if not more other humans that would then invite other men to it. That's the hope anyway.
Yeah, because it's just as valuable for the women, because whether we have partners, brothers or fathers, and just to build that level of compassion and perhaps a different perspective of how, we learn something new about men and ways to talk to them.
I mean, that's the hope, but really, I also want to emphasize that that's not that's the scope of that workshop. But men also want to be listening to women a lot more, because we have a preconceived idea of how women perceive us. And my good friend Malcolm, who I'm doing a podcast with around this idea of reimagining what a man can be. He invited a bunch of women to kind of just to share their experiences about men, and it was just super informative. So I'm hoping that we can do that soon as well. That's just men listening is going to be a big part of our adjustment to the world today, I would say.
Is there anything else that you would like to share in regards to self-worth and perhaps what it has brought you into your life?
I think that it is part of the longer journey, that because of the culture that we live in now, we want a quick fix for everything. We want everything quickly. We want to experience things fully. And I think there's the most important piece, around kind of self-awareness, healing and growth is actually being missed out on, because it's the taking the time, to do these little subtle practices and build the sort of more subtle awarenesses that if people took more time with and took more time for, then they get kind of more long-lasting, more sort of fulfilling kind of results, and that spreads out into all areas of their lives. And so I can't advocate just buying the book, the SelfWorth Safari enough for what that's done for me, because that's it's been my journey personally to shift from kind of self-esteem, personal growth into more the self-worth. And I've made that shift in the last sort of few years, since getting more into yoga and qigong and more subtle practices. And they're for me, maybe not for everyone else, but meditating, taking the time just to slow down and just be okay with what we've got, rather than seeking externally for everything. And if I could finish with one phrase, it would just be like, everything you need is inside you, really. And if that triggers you, then good, sit with it, for anyone watching, like,
call me.
Yeah, I am a coach. I can totally help you. That's my speciality.
Yeah, call me.
Yeah. Love that.
Or come to the SelfWorth week. as well. Like, of course, all the answers are inside you, but it's like, how do we get inside? What are some tips and tools to learn? What are the ways that I resonate with? Like you said, like yoga, qigong might be for you. It's also for me, but for someone else, that might be something completely different. It's not about slowing down, but it's about prioritizing or time management. So I invite anyone who's listening right now to come and join Richard's workshop, my workshop, which is dancing, and anyone else that you feel like, hey, I'm curious. I want to know more about that and how that could affect my life. So the invite is there. And I thank you, Richard, very much in joining us today and sharing your story. And yeah, we hope to see you there in February 8th till the 13th. Thank you.
Ciao.